Greetings, Dapperlings, and welcome to a new first taste for the channel where we're going to be covering Endzone, A World Apart, and maybe we'll even see this become a mini-series if there's enough interest to see more beyond the first episode. Now, before we get down to the nitty-gritty, I do want to offer a big, heartfelt thank you to Assemble Entertainment, who were kind enough to furnish me with a key to check out this game. Endzone World Apart came out of early access about 2 days ago now, on the 18th of March, and as you can probably already tell, just by the name alone, really, this is a post-apocalyptic colony management game. It has a lot in common with games like Banished and indeed Surviving the Aftermath, where it shares not only the kind of core gameplay loop, but also a big overlap with the theme. But there are lots of different ways and little mechanics that make this game stand apart. It has a lot of character when you actually get into the game fully. Now, I say that because the tutorial. Oh, I've played the tutorial, and it was about a 3-hour long tutorial. Chonky. Very, very chunky. In the first 30 minutes of it, because I'm familiar with these sorts of games, it was quite dry because it was gently leading me along the mechanics that I'm quite familiar with colony management games. And if you, like me, approach a tutorial, you might think, oh my lord, this isn't going to be very good. But I would say stick with it, because by about the 30-minute mark, you start to get into the real mechanics that really set this game apart. Of course, there's a sprinkling of differences all the way throughout, but by about 30 minutes into the tutorial, you start to really appreciate what the tutorial has to teach you, so stick with it. Now, as for us, we're going to be jumping into survival mode, and hopefully the tutorial has done as it claimed and has furnished me with the knowledge needed to survive the apocalypse. Now, we're going to have a bunch of different settings here that we can change, a couple of interesting ones actually, just regular difficulty settings, and then, yeah, you've got no trees. That would be hard. Oof. My goodness, that would really put you back. But there's a lot of replayability based purely on the settings, and you can go into further refine them if you like. You've of course got your map seed. Now, one of the things I will say that right from the beginning I didn't really pick up on is that this game doesn't really have an overmap so much as it has one enormous world map that typically you're really only going to be active in a particular part of, but you will interact with the distant locations on this one contiguous map through an overworld-like system using radar, which was really, really an interesting thing. When I realized that, oh, actually, I'm not looking at a separate, kind of geoscape situation. I'm just looking at a zoomed-out version of the map that I hadn't previously thought to zoom out all the way. It was actually quite interesting moment, that. But we've also got the settlement name, Devil's Fork. I mean, we could go. No, we're gonna pick a town name that I've been using in my Valheim stream series. The name of our main settlement, which shall be Ember Light. I think that's a fantastic name for a post-apocalyptic settlement. Now, what kind of post-apocalypse, you are wondering? Well, in 2021. Some scallywags took it upon themselves to blow up a lot of nuclear plants all across the world, and the resultant nuclear winter that settled in lasted for a century and a half. We play as the disheveled descendants of those lucky few that managed to make it to nuclear shelters called Endzones, or they became known as Endzones. We have since decided that the world has healed enough for us to venture out to the surface once again and maybe recover some of that which was lost, including knowledge. And that is where we begin, barely knowing what we're doing, and we've decided to return to a highly radiated world. Joy. I think we can all say that it's going to be nothing but wonderful times. It's basically a massive, awesome camping road trip that is not in any way going to result in anyone turning into a radiation-scarred mutant. That is at least my sincere hope. Now,
this looks like a good place to settle.
Okay.
You know what we learned in the Endzone? Basic needs come first and foremost. We have to build up a water and food supply, and then...
let us build ourselves a new home. Very well. I was a little bit surprised by that voice acting. I was expecting that was only a component of the tutorial, but apparently not. That's actually always nice. Now, I'm going to pause time for a moment just so we can unpack a bit of information. This map is quite expansive. There's a lot of stuff going on here as well that isn't immediately obvious. Like, you've got your typical fare, you've got your trees, your water, little bits of mountains, but you've also got these, which are in fact points of interest that you will interact with through the aforementioned overworld system. Will send out scouts and expeditions to interact with these places, and that's actually where it gets really, really interesting, because there's a lot of choices that you make in these locations, and we've actually got one right next to us, which is going to make for very easy scouting and harvesting indeed. Now, we've also got a couple of overlays. First and foremost, radiation. As you can imagine, being in an irradiated area, not so great for us. It is generally going to be better if we can stick to non-irradiated parts or clear up the radiation as time goes by. However, the world is not static. We have weather, as you can see down here, and the radiation is moving around. There's pockets of radiation from various things. I imagine some buildings created as well, but there are frequent dust storms, and you can have irradiated rain. It does make for a very dynamic experience. You can't simply pick a good spot and then, you're good. Likewise, soil moisture. Obviously, water is wet, but the soil does drain over time, so you get increasing areas of arid. You can have arid terrain. There are droughts, which can have a massive impact, and there are frequent rains. Now, obviously, rain, if it's irradiated, not so great, but it will water the ground, but then you might not like what you're growing out of that ground. So, things to bear in mind. Now, the other ones will become more interesting to us when we can actually interact with them, so I'm not gonna worry about them now. But the first things that we want to take care of are, of course, water and food. And we've got this a nice big, well, it's not it's not even really a lake. I would say it's a very big pond. Right, let's go ahead and get a jetty. A jetty enables settlers to collect water and requires a cistern or a water tower to store the collected water, and can only be built on the water side. As you're probably familiar with if you've played any games like this, the kind of hashed area needs to be in a certain location. So, for example, with the jetty, it needs to be in water. If it was a mine, the hashed area would imply where we need to build it in a mountain. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop that right about there. And that will allow us to collect some water. We're also going to need a cistern to collect the water into. And since these are going to go hand in hand, I'm going to build the cistern right across the way. Now, the cistern will collect and store water. This building requires a jetty, a well, or a rainwater collector to function. Jetties and wells are preferred to rainwater collectors when water is collected, and also rainwater collectors can get contaminated fairly easily because it takes us a while before we know what rains are good and what rains are bad. The water tower is much better than the cistern, but we don't have the resources for it yet. Also, power consumption. Generally speaking, there are very few devices that require power to function at all. Most of them simply get better, and by and large, if a building has power, it also has lights, which means that people working that building will be equally efficient at nighttime as they are in the day. Otherwise, there's a pretty hefty, 50% drop in efficiency whilst trying to do anything at night when it's dark. Now, as for our food, we've got a couple of options. We've got some forests around, but since we've got this easy-to-access water here, let's go ahead and set up a fishing area here, a fishing hut right by there. That's a nice bit of early food supply. Now, the issue here is, as I've mentioned, droughts. They can sweep through and they will dry this entire pond out. Eventually, it'll pass and the pond will refill from the water table. But for a time, it is going to be bad news bears, so we don't want to rely entirely on this. Let's stick down some dirt roads just so things are a little bit easier for our peeps. Now, on the topic of peeps, we're still paused, but we have a lot of jobs. This is very similar to the kind of banished setup. And indeed, the births and deaths, or rather, well, our general populace, which will age and at particular senior years, they will not do any work, really. They will still help out a little bit, but by the seams of it, they get worse and worse. And then, eventually, they sadly die. You need to make sure that you're constantly getting more people in to replace the people that are going out, because otherwise everything grinds to a halt. Very, very similar to Banished in that regard. Now, we're going to want some builders. We're not going to want to fill it all out, but we're definitely going to want 2 water carriers, I'm going to say, and 2 fishers. And that leaves us with 4 untasked settlers. And the reason why that isn't a bad idea is much the same with Banish, actually thinking about it. We can give them generic tasks. Now, these tasks are only completed by settlers who have no other specific job to do. Wood, scrap, plants, clear radiation, or gather all resources. And right now, I would like this one. We're not going to gather from there because that is probably going to be a really interesting site that we will one day want to delve into. We'll have our free settlers help us out around here, but it's finally time for us to unpause. There we go, and our settlers will hopefully get off to their jobs rather sharpish. Now, our builders will be gathering up materials and moving them down. In fact, this tree will probably be chopped as part of the building process of getting that area prepped and ready. And the rest of our crew will gather some other resources out and about. As you can see, we do have some animals around, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. I'm going to slow down time right to the very slowest while we look at a couple of the other things. Now, there is stuff that we can make. We can make scrap yards, forester's lodge. We're going to need a recycler, and the recycler will turn scrap into useful materials, such as plastics. They'll basically sift through the scrap and find out what can be used for what, cloth, that sort of thing. We've also got housing. Now, there are shelters, which will require cloth to make, so we'll be getting to those in time, and there are cabins. Colonists in a shelter will not procreate because they suffer from a lack of privacy, whereas in cabins they will. Using cabins, you can limit how aggressively your population expands. And that is going to be very important because obviously if you expand beyond your capacity to feed everyone, that's going to start having pretty epically bad effects overall. Now, generally speaking, I think we're going to want some cabins down here. We'll just pop two together and they can just be over here right next to the town center. And we'll also bring out this road down here and connect the two up. There we go. That will facilitate our settlers getting a little bit more stuff done around the place. In fact, with that, I'm going to increase our builders up to 3. We'll have 3 general settlers gathering scrap and wood for the time being. We are going to want to get a recycler up fairly soon, and there we go. We've already got our first cabins going up. There we are. Capacity is 5 of 5. Capacity 4 of 5. Everyone in the colony currently has somewhere to call their own, and that is very, very important. Let's grab a little bit of everything else. So that being said, actually, no, that wouldn't make any sense because there's at least, yes, the children are in here. So actually, we've only got 4 of the adults currently housed, and they've just brought their children with them. So we're going to want to set up a recycler fairly soon, I'm going to say. Now, you don't want them too close to anywhere where they're going to be housing because they care about these sorts of things, and that is going to be a little bit too noisy for them. So let's go ahead and place our recycler somewhere down here. I think that'll be fine, right about there, and we'll draw out the road a little bit further. Now, you do want to, where you can, limit the amount of walking that people are going to have to do. But we definitely do want to get that recycler up and running so we can get some cloth and eventually get ourselves the necessary materials to build a shelter so that we can get everyone else who isn't living in those cabins all living together as a whole. Children actually, once they're not babies, will help out a little bit around the colony as well, in that they will be tasked with bringing materials and food to the houses in which they live. So the adults don't have to busy themselves with that. They can focus on the jobs that I've laid out for them, which is actually quite important. Now, I'm going to wait for this to be built first. We've currently cleared the building area. We're bringing the wood and the scrap along, and then construction progress will begin. Right now, hopefully, we are seeing some water being stored. We are not yet seeing any water stored, which is a bit of a problem. Let's have a watch of you. You taking the water back and forth? Yes, you are. There we go. We should start seeing the water being stockpiled. There we are. Nice. Right. Mining buildings can be upgraded, by the way. Once you've got the materials for it, you don't usually have to pull a building down and then erect the advanced building. You can just upgrade. And this area is going to help us out quite a lot, that road. But while it's raining, oh, yeah, that rain is already gone, and it is now dry once again, sadly. We have got a rain cloud over here, and it looks like the rains are moving in, and as they move, There we go. Perfect. That is a good demonstration of the way that this all functions. So we're getting the rain is moving through, and behind it probably it's starting to dry out already. So it's a relatively arid environment here. Right, well, given that then, we are going to want to focus on other food sources as well. Have we got the recycler up? Yes, we do. Fantastic. Yes, I want you to be making cloth, so let's get you going with that. And already, some of our children have grown up, which is actually kind of awesome. Now, for food, got a couple of other options. A gatherer's hut wouldn't be a bad idea if we build it anywhere close to a forest, and a hunting lodge similarly. These would not rely on water, whereas a farm would. So I'm tempted to go for the gatherer's hut over the farm for now. We've got quite a lot of bushes that we're going to be able to gather food from. And let's try and keep things together. We can pop... Yeah, we'll pop this down here, and we don't need to worry over much of my placement here, simply because we can adjust their work zone as well. It isn't just going to be the area that was highlighted around the cabin. Well, let's get that sorted. And has this one done its job? I think it has. Oh, there's still a few more items within range, so I'm going to allow our settlers to continue working on that. I am going to hold off on putting down the gather until this is all built, but we don't need as many builders as we've currently got. The rains are passing well overhead right now, and as you can see, the ground is becoming greener. And that's one of the other things I quite liked, is that it's the world really does seem to respond to the environmental effects going on around it, which is actually quite cool. Now, how much do we need on this? We've already got a decent amount of the wood. Scrap is on its way, though I'm thinking probably some of the next things we're going to put up is a forester and a scrap hut, so it's a lot easier for us to get those materials brought over. Ooh. Homeless shelters, yes. We need to build those shelters, and we need to get them up fairly soon as well. Right, let's get 2 gatherers over here, and furthermore, we want the gathering hut to be primarily active deep in this forest. There we go. It's gonna involve our gatherers having a lot further to walk, but that should be okay to start with. Now then, as for the shelter, still we're going to be waiting on that cloth. It's coming along, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, yeah, build the shelter now. Let's get that up and running. And we'll deliver resources to it as and when we're able. Well, actually, let's slide that one back, actually. Let's cancel that. So, stop. There we go. And we'll slide that over just a little bit. There we go. I think that would be better, so that the wall goes around the town hall rather than around the cabins at the back. There we go. And we'll bring that down just because. And there we are. That'll look lovely, I think. Right, we're going to let a little bit of time pass, but we are going to have to deal with the homelessness pretty soon, actually. I may want to get some more cabins built in the meanwhile, simply because we are going to want a healthy amount of more population coming in, and the cabins are relatively easy to build. Certainly we can deal with having 4 cabins up and running. That shouldn't result in any kind of overpopulation scenario. Not for a long while. Right, there we go. And we'll bring that around. There we are. Now, you want to leave a little bit of room here and there with your housing, because there are decorations in this game, and that does actually matter. So we're going to want to get to those. There we are. Now, has this got anything left to do? I think it might. Yeah, it does a little bit. But I think we're going to get rid of this for now, and we're going to reposition that task. We'll pop that one over here instead. Right about there. Now, what I would like to do is have a logger's hut somewhere around in this direction, which would actually be super useful. But for now, we're just going to have to hold tight. Right, how much cloth has been brought along? No cloth yet, but hopefully we are starting to stockpile it. We'll have to see. Let's... ooh, a drought is on its way. Okay, well, for now, our colony doesn't actually use a lot of water yet. So we should be relatively okay with that for the time being. But we do want to try and get that sorted sooner rather than later. Maybe another system wouldn't be a terrible idea. Let's have a look. Or maybe just an extra water carrier. Just to make sure that we can get this system filled up sooner rather than later. Now, in terms of building a second system, let's have a look. Have we got enough room for that? Oh, that's a water tower, sorry. Yeah, we do have enough room. I could put a second system there. How much does it need? We're starting to get to a dangerous level on scrap. So first, we do need the scrapyard. If we pop a scrapyard down somewhere like here, that's going to be great for the time being, simply because of the amount of scrap that we have in this area directly. Sure, let's get that built. We're going to very much need it. As you can see there, the housing attractiveness would go down anywhere near this thing. So that's why we really want to try and keep all of our buildings nice and far away. This will take care of the remaining homelessness, as you can see. If we have a peek in here now, there we are. It's got a complete total capacity of 25, which is actually quite nice. Now, in here, we've got the old and infertile and all settlers. These stats actually do matter quite a lot, so do pay attention to them. But with that done, we can now add in a scrap collector. Though, again, we're going to wait for this to be finished first. It shouldn't take us too long. And much like the Gatherer's Hut, we can reposition where the people working at this scrapyard actually go to work, where they look for new scrap to harvest. And that will be important to us. Right, currently, we're going to do a few more things. We could look to upgrade this if we get enough scrap. The bus is the heart of the settlement. It can store most of the resources and provide more capacity with each upgrade. As soon as the bus has been hitched in place, settlers can meet their and increase their confidence. Confidence is basically, you can think of it as the comfort of the colony. The more comfortable people are, the more likely they are to want to procreate and start a family. If they have no confidence that this place is a good enough place to bring children into the world, they simply won't do it. So you do need to be mindful of that, like very mindful, in fact. If you've got very low comfort and attractiveness around your housing, if you don't have particularly good housing, like we don't want to stay at cabins forever, but initially it's okay. Our population will understand that these are dire situations. We are now at a point where we can no longer store any more water, so let's go ahead and get another system up and running, please and thank you. There we go. That will help us quite a lot. Right now, we don't need the water carriers doing nearly as much work as they're doing. Now, one thing we haven't actually touched on is the storage levels that we have for the various items. For example, if let me see if we can find that game log. No. There we go. Down here, resources. We can actually adjust how much of any particular resource we're willing to store. Production limits. There we go. So, for example, I am happy for them to store 90,000. They can't, but I would be completely happy if they would. Food-wise, they're only going to store 5,000. And in much the same way as you could in Banished, you can use that to do two fairly important tasks, actually. One of them is simply prevent you over-harvesting an area. The other is to prevent having loads of workers dedicated to a task that you just don't need. If you've decided that honestly your colony would have plenty of food with just 5,000, then only have 5,000. And if you're at that limit, stop dialing down on the amount of workers you've got in your various food production facilities. It will help a lot. But at this point, I don't really think there's enough here. I mean, there's one more apparently, but there are very few settlers coming to do that work. There we go. Once this tree is chopped, that's it for this, and we'll pull it down. There we go. We don't need it anymore. And from this point, I don't think we're going to worry about that having that kind of scavenging any longer. We've now got a source of scrap coming in. We've just had a new birth. The timer there is letting us know how long until that child joins the adult workforce, which is actually very useful. It is always good to have free settlers. Always good to have a couple, because if anyone dies in a profession, they will immediately be replaced by a free settler, unless there are none there, in which case that profession is now understaffed. The next thing that we're going to want, though, is definitely going to be a forester's lodge. Now, as you can probably imagine, a forester's lodge does more than just chop trees. It also plants them. And that is going to be incredibly important to us. Let me make sure that this is lined up. I do love the guiding lines that you get there. Now, does this pull down? Yeah, it does actually pull down a house's attractiveness. Okay, so we're going to pop this down here instead then. And we should be able to, much like with the oh, in fact, we could possibly put it there. No, we cannot. Does that one pull down attractiveness? Actually, we can easily see that by having a look. No, it doesn't pull down attractiveness, so that's good. But the Forester, much like most other production buildings, we will be able to tell it to work in a different area. Now, they're going to have a bit of a long walk to get down here, but I think that should be okay. It will be balanced out by the fact that we're not interrupting our living quarters too much. All right, let's get someone down there as quick as you can, please. We've built our second system now, so they're starting to fill this up, and the drought is not too far away, so hopefully we can get that going nice and quickly. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take care of the basic needs, and we're only part of the way to covering that right now. We do want more people living in the colony. Well, quite a lot more people, actually. I may go ahead and build some more cabins to try and help with that. Hello, dear. Stag, in this case. Let's have a look. Let's get a couple more cabins. We would like to have some more children growing up in the colony as quickly as we can, but I think at 6 we're going to call it for now. I would be a little bit concerned to push it much further than that. Right, let's get the road up and around, and that leaves us with a little area in there that we can put some decorations. Now, decorations wise, these are important to look at. Many of them have very large effects, and the effect is felt for a ways. It doesn't actually show us, but they have quite a large effect. They can reach quite far around. Let's go ahead and pop this hedge in. This hedge doesn't do a whole lot, only +3. But oh, does that mean something we don't have? It doesn't. Oh, it can't be built on the street there. Okay, well that's fair enough then. Maybe it would have been better to have these facing the other way. But that's fine, we'll leave it as is. What we will do instead then is place them down here. Now it does require a decent amount of wood for these. So actually, given that, we're going to wait until we've got the... we're going to wait until we have, in fact, got the forester up and running properly. Now, we want this area to be much deeper in here, because I want to keep this area very heavily forested. I will allow them to cut down and reforest, but we're not going to put many workers on it for now to try and limit how aggressively they do that. We're not going to need as many builders either, but we always need builders a bit. You never quite want to take them all off that. Yeah, we're going to have more scrap gatherers than wood gatherers, I think. Now, the reason why we always need some builders is if we click on the town hall, you can change their priorities. I would like them to repair buildings that are damaged above building new ones and above building roads. That should be the very final one. You could, in an emergency, disable any building repair, and that there will be times when you might want to do that. But at the moment, we definitely want to keep our buildings repaired. Now, let's have a look at how arid the area is. The drought is really close. Yeah, the world is very dry right now. Okay, that's going to be a bit of a problem for us. But hopefully we will be able to sort it out. And as you can see, our builders have no particular jobs to do, so they are now building roads, which is always a good thing to see that we've gotten to that point. But our gatherer is doing a decent job. There's lots of berry bushes, lots of foliage that they can harvest, mushrooms and the likes. And this matters quite a lot, because if we look over here, rich food. The number of different types of food currently being stored at the settlement. The provision of a large number of types of food together with herbs keeps settlers healthy and lowers the risk of an outbreak of disease. And that is something that we're going to want to look into fairly soon, because right now we're not producing any herbs. If we have a look over at resources, I believe the herbal hut. A herbal hut gathers herbs in the forest, which can then be used to improve settlers' health. We are going to want one of these fairly soon. If you have a look over here at the various levels of contentment in the village, there's discomfort, which means that there's crime rates, and as it gets worse and worse, all three of them don't kick in at the same time. Each one of these is split up into 3 blocks, and the first level of discontentment would lower the rate of reproduction, and there would be looming crimes. The second would longer time periods of production and research, looming rebellions, and the third lowers the speed of movement, looming exodus. However, with contentness, the first bar will give you higher rate of reproduction. Newborn settlers will live slightly longer, and then the second bar, newborn settlers will live longer, and then the third bar, they'll live distinctly longer. It is really good to have your children growing up to live much longer lives, and each one of them is actually tracked, or it seems to be the case, somewhat like Surviving Mars, for example, where Martian-borns were, after a bit of research, significantly better colonists to have than those who come from Earth, because they were acclimatized to the Martian environment. They never knew any other world, so they didn't get bothered by crises happening. That was just norm for them. And especially once you got to researches like genetic modification, then they were just straight up smarter, and so on and so forth. This has that kind of effect in that the newborns, it doesn't affect the whole population, only those born during that period of contentment. So you do want to try and keep that up there at all times. How's our water going? We've partially filled the second tank. I think we should be okay, because it's going to rain straight after this drought. So we're only going to have a drought and then a rain. So given that, I'm not going to massively prioritize getting this filled up. But there we go. Water's gone. Sadly. Oh, apparently almost gone. There were just a last couple of fish there floundering around, but now there's no point in having anyone working in the fishery. There's no fish. Likewise, no point in having any water collectors. Now, I do need to remember to put people back into these jobs later on, but for the time being, I can instead have some extra gatherers, some extra foresters, so on and so forth. Furthermore, we're going to want to start working on other types of recyclables. Now, we can get the charcoal kiln to get coal, and we are going to want to grab that. But right now, I would like another recycler so that we can get some metal, and then finally, we're going to want a final recycler. Now, hopefully, we're going to be far enough away for this not to bother anyone. But you know what? Rather than risk it, let's put the other recycler down here. Now, all of them work off scrap, so it makes sense for them to be at the place where scrap is generated directly. There we go. We'll build out this dirt path around the other side just to make it nice and comfortable for them. Right, with that, we will then need another recycler in each one. So let's go ahead and pop down... where's the recyclers? Or refiners. We'll pop them in there ahead of time. We're also going to bump up our builders for now. Now, each one of these will be working on a different resource. We've got metal, cloth, and plastic that you can get out of scrap, and that is going to be a big help. And we are now higher rate of reproduction, and newborn settlers will live slightly longer. That is fantastic. We're starting to see more and more children in the colony. Now, that being said, our shelter is okay for the time being, but as soon as the children reach adulthood, they'll move out. Young adulthood, they'll move out and into the shelter. So we do want to keep an eye on that, and might want to start expanding that in time. Currently, we have no radiation protection. Settlers with no protective clothing, yes, and that is a bad thing for us to be in the position of. So what we're going to want to do is build a charcoal kiln and a tailor's workshop, because we're going to need both towards the end. Now, this we're going to place... sure, we're going to have the tailor's workshop... Oh, well, actually, we're going to start building them down here, I think. Many of our settlers are forced to move across the wasteland unprotected. We should boost our production of protective clothing. Very well. We will do this. Let's do it. We've now got a side quest to that end. Okay, then, fine. The mountain is kind of in the way, so I guess we're going to have to push this down a little bit further. Somewhere around there will do. Right, there we go. Let's get logistics set up all the way up. Right, I want you to focus on metals, please. And as soon as this one's built, we'll get plastics going up. And there we go. Now with that, we're going to be converting our scrap into all of the basic resources. We won't have electronics, we won't have coal yet, but we are going to need both of them before time is up. I'm going to reduce the forester for now to have a tailor, and I'm also going to reduce the gatherer just for the time being. Ooh, is the rain here? Is this filled back in? No, it won't fill back in until the rains come, sadly. We're going to have to wait for a little longer for things to fill back in. Right, let's have a watch of this. This should go up fairly quickly. We've got a decent amount of the necessary materials. In fact, we've got exactly enough cloth there. So, right, let's have a look. We did okay with the systems actually. So I'm only going to put down one water carrier for now, and we'll see how they do. If we slowly lose water, then I know that one isn't enough to meet the demand of the settlement as it stands. But we are also then going to... I'm going to risk it and drop our scrap collector down so we can have an extra fisher. I would very much like to make sure that we have that food coming in. Gatherer's hut. Yes, there was nothing to gather for a while, or at least it seems that way. Let's pause this and have a look if there's anywhere with food to gather. No, the drought killed off a lot of food. So we're just going to have to leave that there, but for the time being, there's no reason for us to have two gatherers. We'll just have the one, and hopefully that will get better in time. So instead, maybe we're going to just have to lean heavier on our fisher for now, and hopefully they will be able to keep us going. We'll see what happens with that. Now, hopefully we can get the tailor set up in no short order. There we go. And then we can see how this one goes. Right, okay, so the tailor. Currently, we can make a neck scarf out of cloth. If we want to make activated carbon masks, we need charcoal. As you might imagine, we need activated carbon. That's going to take a little bit of time for us to set up because our population isn't quite where we want it to be. We have got a lot of food... Look, we have to be prepared for the grim choices that we might be called upon to make in the future. In Frostpunk, it was sending the kids into the generator to fix it. In this, we may just have to eat them eventually. No, there is no cannibalism as far as I'm aware. This is not a Dark Aavak game. Though I'm sure Dark Aavak could find a way to make it a Dark Aavak game. But cannibalism won't be on the menu. But that actually hurt my soul to do. So you can't be too angry at me. I hurt myself with that one. So I am a victim as well. However... things look like they're starting to come back to life. It looks, in fact, like there we go. The forest has started to return the bounty that we so desperately needed. So we'll redistribute a little bit there. Right. Okay. We've got a lot of children about to grow up actually. So we may be able to get those activated carbon masks up and running. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Resources. We are going to want, not the workshop, no, we want the charcoal kiln. And since this is obviously going to be a fairly important building, specifically for the tailor, let's try and pop it down here with the tailor. Right about there should do nicely, I think. And that is going to necessitate a charcoal burner. Now that is going to start pulling on our trees a little bit, which is a problem, but we should be okay, I would say. I may build a second forester and have the second forester purely there to repopulate the forest and replant the forest. That way, I could happily cut down trees in this area, but I'd be replenishing the trees twice as fast as I was cutting them down, which seems to be a good place, especially since we're currently reliant on that for our food. We're down to 740, 50-ish. I'm not liking the look of that, actually. Let's have a look at resources. In terms of food, let's go up. The animals on the map there. There we are. So we've got beans, berries, 20 produced. Does it tell us how much we're eating? 202 produced there. It doesn't actually give us that much of an idea. Last season, that's a bit of a better one. So in the last season, we had a fairly aggressive loss there. 2 seasons ago, yeah, we're gradually losing food rather than stockpiling it. Okay, well that means we need to fix this particular problem. But we also need to get this protective gear made sharpish, as it happens. So I might pop another tailor in there. Yeah, I think having 2 tailors to work on this will be very, very good. And slowly our population will start to equip those finer protective gear. Right, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to try and sort out... We can either go with hunting, useful, again, not reliant on much hydration, but I think instead we're going to go with a farm. Now, the farm should, I'm hopeful, not rely too heavily on the cisterns. We will eventually be able to irrigate the land, but I think a nice chonky farm like that should do us well. And we'll get a couple of farmers working on this. Now, we need to choose the seeds. We've currently got black salsify and beans. Beans give they grow 1.3 seasons and give 540 food. Black salsify, a lot more than that. We want to diverse our diet, but right now it's going to be the beans that we're going for. I think that makes the most sense. We're going to want 2 farmers working on this. Now, I'm going to drop our builders once again, just to make sure that we've got a nice amount of settlers available. But we are actually going to need that water carrier, I think. Is there any way I can pull someone from a job? I don't think it's strictly necessary. The forester. We've got enough enough wood there. I think we should be okay. Right, let's have a watch of our colonists getting to work getting the farming done. Let's build out a road as well. Hopefully our builders can take care of that fairly quickly. And that should help out. Now, let's have a look. Has that pulled down? No, it hasn't. That's glorious. It hasn't actually made the houses any more unhappy. Now, with the use of decorations, you can happily have houses around your industrial area. You can have them right in the middle of the industrial area, and they'll still think it's a nice place to live, as long as you put in the effort to build up the beautification object. So let's do something like that. Street lamp, maybe. We could have something like that. I think that would actually be quite nice. Yeah, we could have something like this, maybe just dotted behind this. I think that'll look very, very nice, actually. This requires 5. This requires 5. They both gave only +1, but I think it'll look nice on this side, just around the wind chimes. You know, just a little bit of soothing music of a night. But as you can see, these have already given quite a large effect. Now, not all of them are within range of everything, but whoomp, there we go. That is going to increase the confidence of the people living in those homes quite a lot, and that is going to be very, very useful. And as you can see, the lamps are different shapes, and I think it adds to the effect not to have everything, you know, perfectly symmetrically built. Oh dear. Okay, so this system has radioactive contaminants in the water. Bad news bears for us. Alright, how close are we to getting... We've got a lot of children about to grow up. That's brilliant. Because we quite badly need... Is it going to be in the logistics? A decontamination post. Shortened production time if it's powered. It requires coal to build. Decontamination post produces a decontamination kit. These are used in storages of surrounding buildings to free food and other resources from contaminants. And that is going to be very, very, very important to us, as you can probably imagine. Now, this will probably need to be somewhere close to all of this in a way, but again, we can just tell it to work in a certain area. So I'm going to put the decontamination station over here, I think. And we'll build this out like so, and that should do a good bit of work for us. Now, let's see if we can get that built up soon. Sadly, we are using up the wood faster than we're now gathering it, so we are going to have to pop a forester back there, as much as I would have preferred not to have to. We're just going to have to go with that, and I may drop our farmers for the time being. Right now, people seem to be doing okay, and the overall health of our colony is alright, but We are behind the curve. We are definitely behind the curve. Now, this coal is presently building up, and we're not using it for activated carbon masks, so hopefully we'll be able to get this finished off quite quickly. We'll have to keep a close watch on this one, though. We may even want another forester, in fact, just to get that that going a little bit faster. How many people? Ooh, there are 10 people currently living in the shelter. That's not grand. Let's have a look at you. Activated carbon masks. We need another 2. And we've got only a little bit of time to get that done. But I really do want the decontamination station built sooner rather than later. Let's have a watch of you. There we go. We're almost there. As soon as we've got this, we're going to switch over to the activated carbon masks. They will last longer and generally protect more. And likewise, we're going to want to start getting some tools as well. Ooh, I have completely taken my eyes off the prize there. Currently, everyone is doing all of their work with their bare hands. Not exactly the best of times, I'm going to be honest with you. But nevertheless, it is the time that we find ourselves in. Hopefully we can get that going rather sharpish. We've got a lot more people around now, so I'm going to push the forester all the way up. There we go. And we are going to additionally consider building a tool shop. Let's get the workshop. It'll make any kinds of tools. And we are definitely going to need them. Oh, we can actually fit the workshop in down here. That'll be, oh, very useful, actually. Sure. Let's go ahead and get the workshop built right about there, if we can. Now, this will actually help us with one last thing, is I can say, build this one next. There we go. That is now going to be prioritized. Or I can switch them around. And realistically, I want the decontamination station built first. But you can only have one in the queue. Obviously, only one thing can be the thing that's being built next. But there doesn't seem to be a queue as such. It is literally just there is something that they're going to prioritize next, and everything else has equal priority beyond that. Now, let's have a look at you. We've got enough charcoal in there that hopefully we're going to see that be brought up there. And there we go. Getting that built. We are now going to switch over to activated carbon masks. Oh, let's have a look. Settlers with no tools. Okay, well, it finally happened. They weren't quite at no tools yet. It's just they had no future tools to replace their current tools with. We'll have one technician and one decontaminator for the time being. I think that should be fine. And now that we've actually caught up with the protective gear, I'm going to drop our tailors down to 1. We were reacting to a crisis before. Now this should be built relatively quickly. There we go. Fantastic. Let's get that finished. And there we are. Now there are 2 types of tools that they can make. One that is made out of scrap and wood, and one which is made out of, and it's much faster to make, and one that is made out of metal, scrap, and wood. I'm going to allow them to build a couple of scrap tools first, just to get that sorted. But then we're going to switch over to the metal tools, which are significantly more durable and will last our colony much, much longer. Let's have a look. Okay, brilliant. The decontamination station down here hasn't caused any issues. Professionals are complaining about a lack of tools. Maybe we ought to build a workshop to be better ensure that everyone's working efficiently. Okay, that is going to be such an easy quest for us to complete. I am very happy. Right, we want the decontamination station. We've only got a few buildings that actually store any contaminatable items that we care about. So we'll just make sure it's somewhere toward the middle of it for now. But our water is going down a little bit faster than I like. So we're going to actually drop 1 extra in there, and then we're going to grab a farmer on there. Though, given that there is a drought just around the corner, maybe we should, in fact, go all the way up to 4. It's a sure thing this new tailor shop will do a wonderful job. We already started production and achieved the preliminary figures, Chief. And we got some extra activated carbon masks as a result of that particular request. Now, I want them to continue building this. Eventually, we can move on to building the radiation suits, which are much, much better. Hello, Tilly. Yeah, well, I'll let you out in a second, sweetie. She wants some food. But actually, on that note, it does look like it's a perfect time for us to wrap things up. We have managed to build a colony which has everything it needs to survive, at least in the very short term. But there is much more that we can do beyond simple survival. I cannot show you the research at the moment, as we haven't unlocked the building that will produce it. but I can assure you that there is plenty of things that we'll be able to research. And if you want to see some of what we can do with that and just how much beyond mere survival we can take this colony, then do let me know down in the comments or with a like on the video. But that is going to be it for this first taste. I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next. But until then, and as always, take care, everyone.